The Fort Erie Podcast with Brent Jones. Brent Jones starts now.
Hey, that's me. I'm Brent Jones. This is episode 66 of the Fort Erie Podcast. Thanks for listening. It is Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. I hope you had a great Labor Day long weekend. I've got a jam-packed episode for you today. Stephen Cooper is going to be joining me. Some of you might know him around town as Coop. He's the executive director of Community Crew. That's a nonprofit that provides free lunches to something like 1,300 students a week across Niagara region, including at 3 schools right here in the town of Fort Erie. So my interview with Coop is coming up a bit later. I've also got a pile of mostly fun Byrd Box messages to play. As a reminder, the number is 289-599-2973. That spells 289-599-BYRD, B-Y-R-D. You can call in 24 hours a day, squawk about any topic. It's Fort Erie's answering machine. You leave a message and then I play those messages right here on the show. And if you're new to the Fort Erie Podcast and you're wondering why it's called the Byrd Box, well, BYRD was the only thing I could spell with the last 4 numbers. I didn't get to choose the phone number. I'm also going to be revealing today the winners of my August Green Acres 50-50-50 giveaway. If you think it might be a winner, stay tuned because I'm going to announce that later in today's show. Now, to kick things off, let me ask you, dear listener, are you a fan of wasps or yellow jackets or hornets or whatever you like to call them? You know, most people, I feel like in recent years with shrinking habitats, people have fallen in love with honeybees. And I can totally understand that because honeybees, like, they're fun. They're studious little creatures. I mean, it's kind of cute to actually watch them go buzzing around from flower to flower, trying to get some nectar. They're fuzzy. You know, I like bees. I think most people like bees. But yellow jackets, wasps, I mean, they're aggressive, especially at this time of year. And it seems to me, maybe it's just me, call the Byrd Box and let me know if you found the same thing, but it seems to me like there's more of them this year than usual. Has anybody else found that? It seems like there's more of them and they're getting aggressive sort of earlier in the season. It always starts kind of late August and then into early September. That's when they kind of go on attack mode. And that lasts right through usually till October or the start of November, whenever the first frost comes. They're very aggressive during that period of time. Now, I was on TikTok the other night. By the way, if you don't follow me on TikTok, I'm at Buy with Brent, B-U-Y with Brent. I make silly videos about real estate, like kind of poking fun at the lighter side of real estate. But I found this absolute twit, this doofus named Brian Smith. He's got a video on there about wasps. This dude's like 100 years old, and that's not me trying to be rude. He literally says in his bio on TikTok that he's 100 years older than all the other TikTokers. So he pokes fun at himself there first, okay? But he's got almost 2 million followers, and he's got a video here. I'm going to play part of it here in just a sec, but he's trying to get us to feel sorry for wasps at this time of year. And I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm going to play part of his video, but he's got the background music on this thing like annoyingly loud. Anyway, just have a listen to what he's got to say.
Bees make honey and its main purpose is to keep them all alive over the winter. Wasps never evolved to do that. The only wasps that go through the winter are queen wasps.
Yes, sir. This is why a lot of people like winter, because there are no wasps. Now, I'm not a fan of the cold weather, but no mosquitoes, no wasps, nothing trying to sting me. I like that. That part's good. Frost keeps them away. Now, I do get that wasps serve a purpose in the ecosystem. They help to remove some of the annoying insect population, but so do spiders. And spiders don't mess with me. I actually quite like spiders. Again, another bug that's like very studious. It's like fun to watch. They don't creep me out at all. They mean no harm to me, and I do my best not to harm them. Spiders don't mess with me. I don't mess with them. But having been repeatedly stung and attacked by wasps over the years, it's just not the same thing. It's comparing apples and oranges. Wasps are the annoying insects. They don't just eat the annoying insects. They become the annoying insects right before they die off for winter. And I'm quite happy to see them go away. Oh, and in case you're wondering, listeners, when I say I've been stung a bunch of times, it's not from swatting at wasps. Please don't take that away from this. One time, for instance, in recent history, I was mowing the lawn and I ran over a nest of ground hornets. I didn't even know they were there and they all attacked me at once. Another time I was golfing at Bridgewater Country Club, and anyone who's golfed with me knows I'm a terrible golfer. I lost my ball in the rough, which is pretty typical on most holes. I'm trying to find it. And of course, I stepped on a nest of like these ground hornets, and they actually stung me all over my face, repeatedly stung me. But don't worry, this Brian Smith guy loves wasps. In fact, he likes feeding wasps. Listen to this.
Anyway, what this article I was reading said was don't flap and bat them away, put a little bit of sugar to one side. So I tried it when we went for a scone with some jam.
I'm just gonna pause it there. If you watch this video at this part, they're having like a little picnic with scones and whatever he says. He's actually putting out jam, like food for wasps to land on and eat. He's feeding these things. Look, I get it. If you're a pacifist and you don't want to swat them away or you don't want to put out baits for them, that's fine. I mean, I get it, but I'm not going to prepare a picnic for them either. Are you out of your mind? Like, you can actually see him putting out the jam in this part of the video for them. I'll press play again.
One wasp found the jam pot and was enjoying it, as you can see, and the other one found some jam in the lid, and he was enjoying it.
No, man, they weren't enjoying it. These things are monsters. They are predators, sir. They're eating for sustenance. They weren't sitting there going like, oh, we got invited to the picnic. Are you going to invite rats to your picnic too? Or cockroaches or mice or houseflies? Like, get real, man.
They were no trouble at all. It seemed a kindness to give them some sustenance during their last weeks.
Yeah, you know why this guy says that they were no trouble at all? Because he probably left the jar of jam in the lid there. Were you going to put the lid back on the jam and take it home after that? Probably not. Look, sir, I get the desire not to try to harm living creatures. If that's your jam, no pun intended, hey, that's your call. But show them kindness? No, thank you. Anyway, let's get into what's making news in Fort Erie.
News on the Fort Erie Podcast.
There's a ton of stuff happening around our town, so let's just get right into it. Fort Erie town councilors have approved an $18,000 request for funding for new clinic equipment for the Fort Erie group family practice. This money is going to pay for items including an exam table, a medical scale, a transformer wall, a physician stool. Sounds like a good use of funds. The Niagara, Ontario health team is looking to speak with young people from Fort Erie who recently accessed emergency services for mental health or other addictions-related care, specifically 18 to 25-year-olds. They're looking to identify any current gaps that may exist in accessing those services. For more information or to participate, contact Josie at 905-933-4149. There's a house on Edgemere Road that was just featured in Maclean's for being a, quote, architectural gem. And if you look up the article, I think most people around town will recognize this house pretty quickly. It's the one on Edgemere that looks like a shipping container was accidentally dropped on its roof. The article focuses on the architect who, according to Maclean's, found a way to engineer a lake view, even though the house isn't on the shoreline. Now, they call it an architectural gem, but I'm thinking that might be code for ugly and unnecessary, but maybe that's just me. Coming up later in this episode, I mentioned I'll be speaking with Stephen Cooper of Community Crew, and one of the things we'll be discussing is Community Crew's partnership with Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods. Now, Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods, they're hosting two events coming up on Wednesday, September 13th. The first is at St. Michael's Roman Catholic Church Parish Hall at 310 Central Avenue from 11 until 3. It's what I'm going to call like a community outreach type event connecting our local community here in Fort Erie to all sorts of different services and programs across the region. Things like Mobile Closet, the Reach Bus, Streetworks Outreach, Bike Me Up Niagara, so on and so forth. And the second event happening at the same time, 11 till 3, that event is the Seniors Stepping Out Fall Festival, which will be held at the Douglas Heights Senior Center at 265 High Street. Advancing Crystal Beach will be hosting their first annual fundraiser picnic at Bay Beach under the pavilion. This is happening from 1 until 4 p.m. on September the 8th. Attendees will receive a glass of wine, some fancy chocolates, and a picnic lunch. Live music as well, by the way. And tickets are $50, and you can get them directly from Advancing Crystal Beach. Advancing Crystal Beach is also in the news for their plans to open a museum dedicated to Crystal Beach, a 16 by 10 foot museum structure on Erie Road, with the space being generously donated by local realtor Phil Smith, who's been a guest on the Fort Erie podcast several times. And listeners, you know I love Crystal Beach, obviously. I'm not mad about this news by any stretch, but what I will say is that we already have a Fort Erie Historical Museum. And I might have to say it till I'm blue in the face, but guys, we are one town. Having a separate Crystal Beach museum just strikes me as a bit unnecessary, but whatever, guys, have at it. I'm not mad about it. I'll come visit. No worries. A wrong turn on the Peace Bridge has led to an arrest for a man charged with assault. U.S. Customs and Border Protection says a 45-year-old man with an active warrant in Philadelphia was arrested after accidentally turning onto the Peace Bridge between Buffalo and Fort Erie, and he didn't have proper ID, so he was sent to a secondary inspection area where officers took him into custody. The Prince of Wales Stakes is happening at the Fort Erie racetrack on September the 12th, and this is the second race for the Canadian Triple Crown. Supposed to be a full field, 11 horses, $400,000 stakes, and if all 11 horses remain in good health and make it to the gate on September 12th, this will be the largest Prince of Wales Stakes card in 2 decades. The article notes that this the largest, despite ongoing challenges with horse supply constraints in Ontario. And I take that to mean, the nonsense going on with Woodbine that prevents free travel of thoroughbred horses between our tracks. The Crystal Beach Pharmacy, which opened earlier this year, Crystal Beach's only pharmacy, they are having their grand opening celebration on September 11th at 10 a.m. They're located, if you don't know, at 3874 Rebstock Road. The first 100 customers will receive a free gift with their purchase, and you'll have an opportunity as well to complete ballots for a chance to win gift cards up to $50 in value. You may have heard the story. A developer has donated to the town 22 acres of riparian lands, basically just meaning land that abuts water. This land is just east of Waverly Beach, and it was donated for conservation and public use. The 22-acre parcel of land includes beachfront property. Our mayor, Mr. Wayne Redekop, said, "Council is very grateful for this generous and remarkable gift of environmentally significant lands along the Lake Erie shore." Now, I understand the development in that area has been a contentious issue for a lot of people around town, so I'm not going to say a whole lot of anything about this one, except that in my experience, most developers don't give away 22 acres of waterfront property for nothing. I think calling this a donation might be a little bit of a stretch. In other environmental news, some folks around town are upset that the pond at Sugar Bowl Park was dredged in late July, basically destroying the habitat for local turtles and frogs and crayfish and so forth. I'm also curious, not just about this pond being dredged, but why construction of this new Sugar Bowl Park facility didn't begin until late July. We might have the park ready to go by Christmas. Who knows? Let's see. And lastly, just a feel-good story. The Ridgeway Lions have filled 100 backpacks with supplies that will be delivered to local schools just in time for the first day of classes. These backpacks contain items you'd expect, like a ruler, glue sticks, pencil sharpeners, erasers, all that kind of stuff. The backpacks are being distributed to 4 local schools: St. Joe's Catholic Elementary, Stevensville Public School, St. George's Catholic Elementary, and John Brant Public School. School staff will be responsible for distributing these donated backpacks to the kids they feel are most in need.
It's Fort Erie's answering machine, the Byrd Box.
I'm going to start today's round of the Byrd Box by playing a great message, actually. Great use of the Byrd Box. Have a listen.
Just a message to everybody. The Anglican parish players present the baloney, the pickle, the zombies, and other things I hide from my mother. It's a kid's...
Wait, I'm going to finish playing that in a sec, but the baloney, the pickle, I've never heard of this before. What? Sorry, hang on. I'm going to skip back a few seconds.
The baloney, the pickle, the zombies, and other things I hide from my mother.
The zombies.
It's a kid-friendly play. It's on Friday, September 15th at 7 o'clock and Saturday, September 16th at 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock. So there are 3 shows. You call for tickets at 905-894-3350. Admission is a free will cash donation, and the location is All Saints Anglican Church at 149 Mill Street South in Ridgeway, behind the John Brant Public School. Look forward to seeing you there.
Great job, sir. You checked so many boxes with this message, because I'm always telling people, hey, leave a message on the Byrd Box about your upcoming community event. I'll happily play it on the Fort Erie podcast. And then what happens is people wait until the day before their event to call it in. No, this guy got it in early. He had all the details, the who, what, where, when, why. The only thing I still don't understand is why you would hide baloney, pickles, and zombies from your mom. But I guess you got to go see this production to find out. Anyway, the next caller wants to promote a local musician, so have a listen to this one.
Hi, I'm from Crystal Beach. Not sure if you've ever heard of this guy before, but I just got turned on to him the other day. His name is Dan Boyko.
Okay, so I'm again, this is another message. I hate to interrupt, but I'm going to pause this one. So I think listeners, folks who've been listening to the Fort Erie podcast for a while know that I endeavor to keep the Byrd Box anonymous. You don't have to give your name when you call. But guys, I do have call display. So when you start your message and you say, what'd she say?
I just got turned on to him the other day.
Yeah, something about what came up on call display tells me that you didn't just find out who Dan Boyko is. But anyway, let's continue with the message.
His name is Dan Boyko. He is an amazing musician. He's from Fort Erie area, and he's trying to make a name for himself. If you Google him, he's on YouTube. He's got music videos. He's also got a Facebook page, and he's really trying to push his music. By the way, I love your show. Thanks. Bye.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the message. You know what? I looked into I hadn't heard of Dan Boyko, so I looked him up. Yeah, he is Fort Erie based. It looks like he spent some time in Hamilton. And yeah, YouTube, he's got a couple of solid tunes uploaded there. I'm going to play you a small part of his song, Lost Cause. Here, check it out.
A simple kind of life for the simple kind of man. With some grit and luck, might see me again. I'm a lost cause, and it ain't about you. I'm a lost cause for the things that I do.
Now, I like this kind of like classic rock sound because there aren't a whole lot of what I'll call guitar-driven rock anthems anymore. Like it's all sort of like pop or hip hop, like a lot of synth, like a lot of that kind of thing. So I like the guitar-driven stuff that sort of went out of style a while ago, but a lot of us still like it. And I'd be curious, caller, whether you want to call back or whether Dan wants to call in or somebody else listening. I'd be curious to know sort of when and where Dan might be playing around town here. For folks who might like to go check him out live. So leave a message on the Byrd Box. 289-599-2973. Now, one of the things I always say on this show, and I might live to regret it today, is I always say you can call the Byrd Box for any reason. And I've said, even if you want to talk about a customer service experience you had at like Tim Hortons, you can call, or you could even call in and tell me a joke. And that's what this next caller decided to do. Local resident with a dad joke for us. So here we go.
As a teller of bad dad jokes, I made this one up just for the Byrd Box.
Thank you, sir.
You can't always get a laugh when you tell a joke. What do you call two local couples who were seen crying together?
What?
4 teary residents. 4 teary residents.
Yes, I think we all got it, sir. 4 teary residents, Fort Erie residents. Yes, well done, sir. Thank you for that. Hey, at the very least, I appreciate you making up a joke to call in. You put your creativity to work, and I appreciate that. And then this last message I'm going to play today, this is a repeat caller here. Last time he called in, he joked about magic mushrooms. And, funny enough, hey, we got another message here about magic mushrooms. I think we might nickname this guy Super Mario. Anyway, here we go. Have a listen.
I have a friend who consumes them daily, and at times he tells me about various things he's seen. I guess they're hallucinogens or whatever. The other day he told me, after consuming mushrooms all day, he actually had the devil chasing him around the house with a pitchfork. Well, you know what? I'm sorry, man, but you married her.
Good Lord. I might need to revoke my offer to play jokes on this show because these are awful. Hey, if you got a good joke or any other topic, any subject, something you see around town, something you want to respond to, you heard on the Fort Erie podcast, give the Byrd Box a call, 289-599-BYRD.
Have something you want to squawk about? Let the whole town know what's on your mind. Call the Byrd Box at 289-599-2973. That's 289-599-BYRD.
All right, joining me on the phone now, I've got Stephen Cooper from the Community Crew. Stephen, how are you, sir?
Amazing. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great. Should I call you Steve, Stephen, or Coop?
Depends on if you like me, not like. No, I'm just kidding. I've been called many names in the past, but I am good with Coop, Cooper, Stephen. Whatever floats your boat, I'm good with.
When I had Ashley Gibson on the podcast a few episodes ago, she has said Coop, so maybe that's what I'll stick with for today, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. From a hockey guy perspective, that's pretty much what all the people that know me have played hockey with me. That's what they call me and know me by.
Oh, perfect. Well, there you go. I feel like I'm in the inner circle already.
Perfect.
Well, let's start with, can you tell listeners, for the benefit of those who maybe don't know, what is the Community Crew?
Yeah, so Community Crew was an organization that started in 2015 that essentially said, hey, there's a need in our communities for food security. And it started with one school in Edith Cavell from a church group in Central Community Church. And that spawned an idea that, there's a greater need, but also that we can do more together as a community. And it then became a registered charity as Community Crew. And we serve any poverty-stricken areas specifically for families across the entire Niagara region. So we went from one school and a couple lunches to now in 2022, we did 4,000 lunches a week across 30 schools in both our Catholic school board as well as our DSBN, which is an amazing idea to think about. That essentially it just came from a bunch of people wanting to make a difference together to say, hey, we can make a difference and see lives transform together. But it's translated to 4,000 lunches a week, 3 days a week at these schools, and there's still a wait list and there's still a need further than what we already do for Community Crew. I
had no idea, pardon my ignorance, but I had no idea it was that widespread. 4,000 lunches a week.
Yes, which is about 1,300 kids. And some families and kids in our programs are temporary, so job loss or circumstances. And then some are, which is most of them, are long-term circumstances. So it could be just, again, financial stability. It could be abuse situations. It could be, addiction to circumstances, or it could just be newcomers to Canada. There's many reasons why people are in a poverty situation, and our programs are designed around specifically targeting those that are in desperate need in those communities to then ensure that at least 3 days a week that these families have no worry or stress that their kids are not having a lunch during school hours.
Yeah, and you mentioned 30 schools. You mentioned a wait list. How does the Community Crew go about determining, say, hey, we can help this school, but this school maybe we can't? I mean, I assume some of it is available resources, but are there other criteria there?
So a lot of it comes with sustainability. But moving forward, it's going to come to, we determine the schools that we ran originally based on the poverty data in Statistics Canada. And obviously that data is obviously a couple of years behind. So the challenge we have is none of the schools that we currently serve, we don't want to go to these kids and say, hey, by the way, I know you've been getting these lunches and inspirational notes that say you matter and the world is better because you're in it, right? So we don't want to go to those kids and say, hey, by the way, last year you matter. Now there's another kid in another school that matters more than you. That's not the right message we want to send to these kids, that we're saying you matter and you're loved. So we want to sustain the 30 schools we're in and then grow and sustain adding more that essentially we know there's a need for. So there's two ways we're doing that. Number one is the poverty data. Number two is the communities that we're in. Not everybody knows about us. So we're trying to say businesses, for example, Port Colborne, which we're not in right now, but we're looking at, is, hey, if you want to finance this, right? If you want to say, hey, what can we do in our own community? Can we sustain it for the year? Because there's no sense starting something if we can't sustain it. Because you can't send the message to these kids, they matter, and then take it away 2 seconds later or a year later and say, guess what, you don't matter.
Right.
So the thought process there is, number one is I'm entertaining thought processes with businesses to say, if there's a school that you think is in need, that data doesn't articulate properly, then let's have a conversation. Let's go for a coffee. Let's talk about what is the need and how do we help facilitate that. In particular, the schools that are on the wait list, the challenge we have is food costs have risen dramatically. So what do we do about that? We have to try to create efficiencies with expenses or find businesses in those communities to say, listen, I want to feed kids in my community. I want to make a difference directly in my community. And then we partner with those businesses or organizations like Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods to say, hey, how can we do this better together? And how can we deliver on our mission to help these kids for not only just this year, but to elevate them and transform their life for their future.
So if I can jump in, Coop, because I've got quite a few questions I want to unpack. No, that's good. You shared a lot, and it's led me to a few questions. So you mentioned the price of groceries, and I'd have to think that that's a bit of a double whammy because it makes it more difficult for families to provide lunches on their own for their kids. But then it must make it more difficult to do the work you do as well. Is that a fair statement?
100%. And now we are thankful and blessed because we have a lot of community partners across our region that have said, hey, we want to help. So there's farms, there's corporations, there's individuals, right? But it's still, we're at a very critical moment in time right now with inflation, housing crisis, and circumstances that our food banks are overwhelmed. The other challenge you have is we want to provide food for these kids, but sometimes if you give it to the parents and they're in an environment where these parents are actually abusing the resources that they're getting, the whole reason why Community Crew was in the schools and giving these kids direct food is so that all of that challenge is eliminated. This food is going directly from resources or community partners or businesses directly to the schools, and these kids are 100% getting the food that they need.
Yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs. I mean, you mentioned the food banks. I did a food drive for COPE earlier this year, and I also had Ann Waters on the podcast from Salvation Army, and it is incredible in just a few years seeing these shelves bare. I mean, bare in a way that I've never seen them bare before.
Yeah, and I think some of the challenge we have is providing food is a band-aid, right? And I think we all realize the truth to that is there's more we can do. Giving the food is one component, but now there's got to be another layer. There's got to be an engagement and empowerment. And that's what Community Crew comes into play because our programs are designed, for example, with our leadership component with grades 7 and 8 is it's kids helping kids, right? We deliver these kids the lunches to the schools, and then we empower the schools to engage the 7 and 8 to then deliver and secretly, we try to do it all discreetly. So again, you're not trying to isolate or kind of show people that essentially someone's in poverty. But engaging kids is another level in this because they have to be a part of the cycle breaking. And the families that are in there, what are we doing to actually say, what are you doing to help? What are you doing? Instead of a handout, it's a hand up. What are we doing to kind of elevate as a community that this isn't just about here's the food and keep coming back for it. Is how do we partner and elevate this beyond the handout to a hand up?
Well, I like that phrase, a handout to a handoff. I mean, there's a sense of empowerment there. I want to bring it back to Fort Erie. Obviously, you're based in Fort Erie. This is the Fort Erie podcast. Out of the 30 schools that you're serving right now, how many of those are based within Greater Fort Erie?
Yeah, so there's currently 3 schools that were in Fort Erie. So we have Our Lady of Victory, which is one of our biggest need community schools. Mm-hmm. A lot of it has to do with the refugees that essentially come across the border and essentially that data that essentially showcases that need. We also have our Peace Bridge School and we have John Brand in Ridgeway. So the reality for us is we're not specific to say, well, one community is greater than another. I'm a born and raised resident in Fort Erie and our Ridgeway community. So to me, anything I can say, wow, there's a tie back to my local growing up community is amazing. But it's a sad state of affairs when we start to think there's wait lists. There's kids that are coming in to schools not having the food and requirements, which is the basic need to then function from a physical perspective as well as a mental capacity perspective to then really just set them up for success in life. And I think, for me, I look at the Fort Erie market and say, is there more there we can do together? 100%. Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods has been an amazing community partner. If people on this podcast are listening and saying, well, what is that? I implore you, please go to the website for Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods. They do a bunch of different programs to serve and support the community. Community Crew is a partner with them to make sure that our resources are distributed to the Fort Erie kids. But there are Fort Erie families that are coming and being served through that market. So I'm very grateful for that partnership because it has allowed us to still do our mission while at the same time being a partner with an organization that says, hey, there's more here than just the kids. These families need help and support.
So maybe clarify for me, because this, I'm going to totally concede my ignorance here. This is my first time hearing about Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods, and I'm going to look into this organization more, and I encourage listeners to do the same. But when you say they're your local partner, so what is, can you explain sort of the mechanics of that? How are they involved with what you're doing?
Yeah. So our donors who donate to Community Crew, the money and resources go to the tire bucket. Unless somebody says specifically like, hey, I want it to go to X, Y, or Z, or only in the community of, Thorold or Niagara Falls or Welland, or in this case, Fort Erie, it's a generalized program across all poverty in the entire Niagara region. And it's designed that way specifically because we can adapt based on, the need and services across the entire region. But Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods actually is a huge component. And it's, I would again, please read about it. Go and see the team there, because it's actually a not-for-profit, 100% ran by volunteers. And it's all about connecting and eliminating barriers. So for our purpose, for our program, we have the means and resources. So we buy all the provisions for the lunches. We get it all ready. We then organize the delivery with Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods to get to their facility in in Fort Erie, which is just outside of Our Lady of Victory School. And they have all the resources there, the kitchen, the facility, freezers, fridges, right, to essentially store and distribute based on their volunteer network in that group.
Oh, wow.
To then get it to the kids, because otherwise we're trying to basically make all the lunches and stuff in St. Catharines at our major main prep facility to then distribute it to schools in Fort Erie, which is a long distance. I guess it's short in reality because it's about 35 minutes, but it's still a long distance that doesn't have to happen when you have amazing people in the community basically in the trenches doing this. So their mandate is when people live in a strong and healthy neighborhood, barriers are lower and people are freer to participate in and contribute to the community. Ultimately, this benefits this community as a whole. That's their mission, to kind of say this is about community connection. And it's not just about food security. Their whole program is about helping people. It's creating a stronger Fort Erie together.
That's awesome. Well, I certainly encourage listeners to check out Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods. And one thing I've found, you mentioned growing up in this area. My wife and I moved to the town of Fort Erie 9 years ago, and I've always been amazed at the levels of generosity that I see in this town, because when there is a cause to get behind, I feel like people in Fort Erie really step up to the plate. So for people listening who might want to get involved with the Community Crew, who may want to help support your mission, what are some ways that they could do that?
Yeah, so for easiest ways is obviously there's snack drives we can do. So even if you are working at an environment where you're like, hey, we can do a difference. We can drop a bin off. You can collect snacks for us. It's one of the most costly things, but in reality, most people are shopping for their own families and their own kids. And if you bought an extra fruit snack box or you bought an extra granola bar, you can help feed our program and support these kids that need, not only in Fort Erie, but also across the entire Niagara region. Mm-hmm. The other way is financially, obviously, is a huge component, right? I mean, we have our 12 for 12 program. It's $12 for 12 months, and that's 76 lunches. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you could say, wow, that's a coffee a week. Can I give up a coffee a week to feed a kid that wouldn't otherwise have a meal? That's the reality. If none of those come into play and you're sitting here saying, you know what, I'm struggling myself, and that's a reality most people face right now, then we have the Many Seeds app. So it's so it doesn't cost anything. It's a downloadable on all the platforms. It's called Many Seeds. You download it, and then you would essentially set up your profile. You can pick up the 3 charities of choice. Obviously, hopefully you pick Community Crew. And essentially you watch up to 3 12-second ads from people in Niagara to watch these ads, and then it translates to 6 cents per view for the charity of choice.
Get out of town, really?
Yeah. So like yourself, if you said, hey, I want to advertise as a realtor, and say, hey, I want to advertise on that. Normally, if you go to YouTube, it's 3 cents per view for a rotation ad. You pay about 20 cents per ad on this, again, Niagara-based focus. And then 6 cents per view goes directly to the charities that every viewer picks as their charity of choices on that list.
Wow, that is very cool. Okay, I didn't even know many seeds existed, so you taught me something new.
Perfect. Yeah, so you can volunteer, you can financially donate. If you can't do any of those, Many Seeds is the easiest thing I say to people. Hey, I'm grabbing a cup of coffee in the morning. I'm going to view a couple ads. Hey, this is cool. Oh, I saw a new restaurant. Oh, hey, I saw a new bank to look at. Like, at the end of the day, it's about, I had my coffee, I looked at some ads, and guess what? The charity makes money out of it. So that's amazing.
Now, for somebody who maybe wants to look at volunteering opportunities, getting involved that way, what's the best way to do that? Reach out to you directly or go to the website, or how would you recommend somebody do that?
Yeah, like we have our own volunteer system. If it's Fort Erie based specifically, what I would suggest you do is actually reach out to Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods, because to be honest, we could vet you and go through our process, but our main prep site is in St. Catharines, whereas I think if you're in Fort Erie and you're listening to this and you're saying, hey, I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference in my own community, in the lives of kids and families, then I think Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods is the way you go, because their vetting process for their volunteers would then filter through our own partnership. And you would be a part of both organizations to deliver on, what is a commitment that you can commit to and help with in your own community. But if you're thinking, hey, you know what, I'm actually, I listen, I'm a part of Fort Erie, or I grew up in Fort Erie, and maybe I live in Thorold or Niagara Falls or St. Catharines, and I'm actually thinking, hey, I'd love to actually partner with Community Crew because there are prep sites in St. Catharines. Currently moving into the Grantham Optimist Club, which is we're super grateful for their generosity and support. Then, yes, go to the website, so communitycrew.ca, and you'll fill out the volunteer application form, which will go to my program manager, Jen, and she'll essentially say, hey, welcome to the crew. Here's what we need for next steps.
Just clarifying, that was communitycrew.ca, is that right?
Correct, sir. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And I wanted to clarify something else, because you mentioned, I believe it's called a 12 by 12 program for somebody that wants to donate $12 per month. So a total of $144 per year. You said that translates into 76 lunches. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
So basically,
it's a coffee a week.
Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, just doing the quick math here, it looks to me, you mentioned 4,000 lunches a week. If my math is correct, that costs like $7,500. I mean, to produce those 4,000 lunches a week, give or take. Is that about right?
Yeah. So the long and skinny of it, it's about $2 a lunch for like the basic lunches we do. But because our program is designed specifically, so every lunch is catered to a child. So if that child, for example, has a dietary or cultural requirement, we don't discriminate. At the end of the day, if this child is determined to be, hey, you're in need, and, for example, you have a vegetarian requirement, so you're vegan, or hey, you have a gluten allergy, so you need certain requirements to facilitate that lunch. Or hey, you're from a different community. So for example, a Muslim community that requires a halal requirement. We cater to each of those in our lunch program. So the lunches range from $2 to $3. That being said, we don't get caught in the nuance of that. We just say, listen, about $2 a lunch, just to keep things simple, feeds the kid. We figure out the difference between the $2 to $3 for any of the specialty or dietary restricted requirements, because we'll either write a grant for it, we'll ask a business to help us, we figure out the gap. But every individual listening to this that says, hey, can I give up, a Tim Hortons coffee a week to feed kids in my own community? And if the answer is, hey, I could do that, then I think it's an easy answer to say, let me sign up for the 12 for 12, and I make a massive difference in the lives of kids across this entire region, or specifically if it's a desired location like Fort Erie.
Yeah, I mean, I love how easy you make it between Many Seeds or 12 by 12, or 12 for 12, whatever it was called. I like how simple you make it. And the reason I was bringing up that math is to say two things. One, I think if you're producing, catered lunches, or I say catered, like catered to the individual needs of the recipient for, in the range of $2. First, I think you're being very, very efficient with the funds, which you have to be. But the second part to that is that it underscores the need for donations when you look at this crushing number of 4,000 lunches per week and go, hey, if you can spare a coffee a week, as you said, that goes a long way to helping to fill that need.
100%. And that's the scary thing is I know that there's pressure on all things, right? Like I'm with my kids and my family and myself, like we all have to make decisions on, whether or not, sometimes can I afford that? Can I help someone else? And I think, as a community as a whole, I've been raised, giving is so rewarding. And if it means that I give up, a luxury of a Tim Hortons coffee, which, hey, let's face reality, most of us are grabbing a Timmy's or a Starbucks from time to time, just so that I know it's going towards a mouth that wouldn't otherwise have it. To me, that's something you can go to bed at night and say, you know what, I made a true difference. I made a huge impact to kids within my own communities that are going to have a future that otherwise wouldn't have it.
Yeah, those small actions sometimes produce big results. Is there anything else that you want to share with listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, we have many ways to help. One of them being a note writers club. So some people think, oh, well, you're doing these lunches and great, but I actually think the note writing component is actually one of the biggest things that people forget about. And so we have business sponsors that even bought the materials to create these notes, or we have organizations and groups, retirement homes, rehabilitation centers, for example, like Hotel Dieu Shaver, who have partners and said, hey, you hurt your hand, but guess what? We're going to write notes for these kids to put inspirational messages. Not only are you going to help yourself, but you're going to help people, these kids, have an inspiration. So messages like, again, the world is better because you're in it. You are loved. You mattered. Those notes go in these lunches. And sometimes we've heard stories that at the end of the year, they've had the worst year. It's been a struggle for these kids. When they're clearing out their desks, all that's in the desk they saved and they want to keep is all of these inspirational notes they received in these lunches. So even if you say, hey, I can't do all of those things, I can't make a financial contribution, I'm just not in the perspective to do that. But you know what? I've got some time. And maybe it's not many seeds, fine. Maybe you're not tech advanced and you don't want to download an app, fine. But maybe you say, hey, you know what? My family can donate some time and we'll write some notes. Like, I think to me, that's such a touching component of what we do, is connecting people to each other, that your note will go into a lunch and then inspire these kids to say, you are loved, you matter, and we can see your life transformed because of it.
Fort Erie Questions and Answers, based on the Facebook group by the same name.
Welcome to Fort Erie Questions and Answers. This is the part of the show where I go through the Facebook group by the same name and pick out any questions and answers that I thought were especially interesting or helpful. Like this one from Gayleen. She says, I'm shopping to buy new prescription eyeglasses. I'm on a pension, so price is important as well as quality. Opinions and experience, please. So the answers were Costco came up a lot, but of course that's not here in town. You'd have to drive out of town to go to Costco. One person mentioned buying online at clearly.ca, but the most common response for right here in the town of Fort Erie would be to go to the Walmart Vision Center. And I can say from having been there, yeah, their prices are pretty reasonable. Michelle says, hi there. Looking for recommendations for a men's tailor to do some alterations, as well as a good dry cleaner. Thanks in advance. The only real response that came up here was Pike's Dry Cleaners on Garrison Road. And again, I can attest to, yeah, they do good work. So that's probably the best answer here in town. Irmgard says, there was a fellow going door to door on my street from Ontario Paving Solutions offering to seal and repair my driveway for $300. They've left quotes in my mailbox in previous years. Has anyone ever used this company? I can't find any reviews on Google, so I'm reluctant to engage their services. And by the way, that's probably smart for this person. Like if you can't find any reviews online, probably a good idea to get a second opinion before hiring them. But overwhelmingly, the comments came up positive. One person here said they just did mine a few days ago. They did an amazing job. Another person said, yes, we use them, as well as several neighbors. We're all pleased with the results. So yeah, out of like dozens of comments, people either had said they hadn't heard of them or they did hear of them and you know, were satisfied with the work that they'd done. There was just one person here that replied, I heard it is a scam. There's always one, man. I feel like every time every time somebody asks about something, for a review, if something's legit, there's always that one person, I heard it is a scam. This happens almost every month, by the way. Like virtually every month, I do a gift card giveaway on Facebook. Those of you who followed me a long time know this. You can follow me everywhere on social media. I'm at Buy with Brent, at BUY with Brent. So every month, or I should say most months at least, I'll post a photo of myself in front of some local business, with a gift card in my hand, and I'll offer instructions for here's how you can enter my gift card giveaway. And even though there's like 5 years of evidence now on Facebook of me giving away the gift cards and this being perfectly legit, there's always like one person every time that will comment, and a different person, of course, every time that'll say, this is a scam. It's a scam. Don't fall for it. And, I don't bother to reply. As they say, don't feed the trolls. I usually just block that person. just get off my Facebook page, man. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. I know I'm not scamming anybody. Let's see. Debbie says, hi. She posted a photo of her car, with some scratches on it, and says, hi, I'm looking for a place, a home-based person able to fix this small damage I had. And the most common response that came up, and again, a great response, was Bill's Collision on Central. That was the most common response. And I know I've dealt with Phil over there before. That's a good place to go. But I thought what made this question and answer interesting or kind of amusing is one person in the comments named Evan said, use white nail polish. The original poster replied, basically said, yeah, but it's dented. I mean, white nail polish won't fix dents. What a goof. Look, she didn't ask, how do I, DIY it? She didn't ask like, hey, is there a YouTube tutorial somebody can link me to? She asked for a place that could fix the damage. Like, why would you respond, you just use white nail polish? Okay. And may I also add, by the way, how impossible it is to match different shades of white. You think white is just white until you go to touch up something on a white vehicle and you find out there's like 6,000 shades of white out there and none of them seem to match or go together. Anyway, the last question in here I wanted to go through or mention was Stacy says, hi, I'm looking for a local photographer to do some business photos, some graduation photos, some fall family photos, and some headshots. Of all of these can be done by one photographer. Now, there were a few pretty common responses, local responses. Wendy Teal Photography came up a bunch of times. So did Jason Haywood. Jason Haywood actually snapped a photo of me once. He's a good photographer. Magnolia Images came up. I'm going to throw a personal recommendation in there. Generally, myself, my wife, like my family, we use Meg Muir at Muir Image Photography. She's based out of Ridgeway. She's done like my real estate headshots. If you saw my family Christmas photo last year, she did that. She's done a bunch of stuff for my wife as well. What we really like about Meg is that she's good at making people feel comfortable. So I might throw that recommendation in the hat as well. Anyway, always love going through the Fort Erie Questions and Answers Facebook group. Keep those questions coming.
The Fort Erie Podcast.
Still coming up on today's new episode, I'm going to reveal the winners of my August Green Acres 50-50-50 giveaway, and I'm also going to share with you what makes fall a great time to consider buying or selling real estate if you're thinking about making a move this fall. But just first, I wanted to mention, if you enjoy listening to the Fort Erie podcast, maybe you could help me out. Maybe you could help to spread the word about this show, and it costs you nothing to do that, by the way. For instance, to share today's new episode, any episode really, but today's, because you're listening to this one right now, episode number 66. It doesn't matter whether you're streaming today's episode through the FortEriePodcast.com, like through your web browser, or you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts or even YouTube, any player, it really doesn't matter. All of them have a share button. You can share today's episode, with somebody else around town. Tell them, hey, check it out. Maybe they've never heard of the Fort Erie podcast before. Spotify, I know for sure, maybe some of the others as well, but I know on Spotify, you can actually share the episode right to Facebook or even to Instagram stories. So that's something else you can do. You can actually share the episode right to social media. Now, the other way, if you don't want to share, is you could consider rating the show, rating the Fort Erie podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I know those two for sure allow ratings. Both apps have a feature where you can give the show 5 stars, and Apple Podcasts will even let you write a nice little comment or remark. A bit of social proof goes a long way to helping new people discover the show.
Fort Erie Real Estate with Brent Jones. Your friendly local realtor with RE/MAX Niagara Realty.
Spring tends to be the time that most homeowners think about listing and selling their home. Now, there's a whole number of reasons for this. One of them is that very often folks want to try to sell during the summer months, list in the spring, sell in the summer, so that their kids don't have to change schools in the middle of the school year. But the other reason is that there's sort of a real estate myth, let's call it, that spring is the best time of year to sell your home. And, where that myth comes from is that, yes, there are more homes bought and sold every spring compared to the rest of the year, but that doesn't necessarily mean that if you're trying to sell your home, that it's the best time for you to list and sell. And there's a number of reasons for that. I'm going to offer you, in fact, a few reasons why, if you are thinking of making a move, this fall might actually be the best time to get your home on the market. One of those reasons is the opportunities you have to boost curb appeal. We have a lot of visually oriented holidays throughout the fall and into the winter months, things like Thanksgiving and Halloween and Christmas. These are all great opportunities to dress up the exterior of your home. It can be simple, it can be inexpensive, but things like pumpkins and ghouls to wreaths and lights, these all give potential buyers a reason to slow down and gawk, take note of the exterior of your home. Now, I'll also mention that as the weather continues to get worse from now through winter, people who are actually coming out to look at your home tend to be more serious buyers. If I do an open house in the dead of summer or on a really nice day, you'll get all kinds of people stopping in just to have a look around. Nosy neighbors coming in just to, see what the inside of your home looks like. People that want to get out of the heat and just get some of that, crisp air conditioning inside. There's a whole number of reasons why somebody might stop in if they're looking for something to do on a nice, sunny, warm summer day. But when you start getting families, especially young families with kids, like bundling everybody up into sort of a cold fall or winter day to go look at your property, odds are fair to good that they have some degree of interest in what you have to offer. I'll also mention that because so many people list their home in the spring, there are fewer properties on the market. Generally speaking, there were fewer properties on the market come fall. So that means you have less competition. Having less competition potentially means that you can command a higher final selling price or a quicker sale because buyers have fewer options to choose from at that time of year. And if you're concerned about, well, hey, if I sell in the fall, I don't really want to move in the dead of winter, there's all sorts of ways that we can work around that. Just because your listing goes up this month or say in October, that doesn't necessarily mean you're packing to move out in November or December. Very often it will still take, 30, 60, 90 days potentially to get an acceptable offer and then another 60 to 90 days for closing. So very often when we do list a home in the fall, you're not actually moving until sometime, early into 2024. Or into the following year. Cold weather also has a funny way of highlighting features that buyers might not be too excited about during the summer months. A great example might be something like having a hot tub out back. I don't know a whole lot of people who like to sit in boiling water on a boiling hot day, but that hot tub looks a lot more appealing when the weather starts to get more cool and crisp. Another example might be having a gas fireplace in the den inside. If you had that fireplace on and running during the summer months, it would look kind of odd. But when you start to get into cooler weather, it's very appealing for potential buyers to enter your home and see that gas fireplace. So if you might be open to the idea of making a move this fall, I think there's a lot of great reasons to consider getting your home on the market this fall, September, October, November. If you're not already working with a realtor, I'd be happy to come out and provide you with a free opinion of value. My number is 905-626-8826. That's 905-626-8826. Call or text me. Let's get something set up.
You're listening to the Fort Erie Podcast.
So I want to encourage everybody listening to get the Many Seeds app that Coop was telling us about earlier during our discussion. I downloaded it on my phone. I'm an Android user, so I went to the Google Play Store. If you're an iPhone user, I assume it's the App Store. It's really easy to find. You search for Many Seeds, you download it. It's a little green and white logo. And anyway, when you sign up, it asked me to put in my name, my email, to pick a password. And then on the profile page, it let me choose up to 3 charities that I wanted to support, up to 3 nonprofits. I just picked Community Crew for right now, but you could pick two others as well. And then when you go back to the homepage in the app, there's like a play button. It lets you click play up to 3 times a day to watch ads, short ads, by the way, from local businesses. And it actually shows you every time you play a video, like how much money went to the charities you've selected. Like I can see the balance for the community crew go up every time I play an ad. This is the most stupid, easy, low effort way that you can help a great cause. Okay, I'm not trying to call anybody out here, but if you're one of those, I don't have any time, I don't have any money to contribute, hey, that's fine. But if you have a smartphone, and I'm guessing you do because you're listening to a podcast right now, you certainly could spend a minute a day watching 3 ads, knowing that money is going to go to a great cause like Community Crew as a result. So get the Many Seeds app, check it out. It's really, really easy to use. Anyway, to wrap up today's episode, here are the winners. I promised I would announce the winners of my August Green Acres 50-50-50 giveaway. So just to recap, there were 3 $50 gift cards to Green Acres Family Restaurant on Garrison Roads. Basically 3 different ways that you could win. The first way to win was a draw by email address. You know, I instructed you to go to the forteriepodcast.com, click the giveaway link at the top of the page, put in your email address. Well, I drew the winner at random. It is an email address that ends with @yahoo.ca. So congratulations to that person. And by the way, all the winners are going to be notified offline, you know, in terms of just in case you're not listening to this podcast episode right now. It's, you know, I will send them an email. I'll reach out to make sure that they get their prize. Okay. But that gift card went to an email that ends in @yahoo.ca. The second gift card was for leaving a message on the Byrd Box in the month of August. If you called and left a message, you went into a draw by phone number. And there were a lot of messages, by the way, that came in on the Byrd Box in the month of August. Some of them I still haven't even played yet on the Fort Erie podcast. But the caller whose number was drawn, it ends in the number 6913. So congratulations to you. That is gift card number 2. And the third and final gift card was for playing Fort Erie Trivia right here on the Fort Erie podcast and winning. And we heard that back in episode 65. Last episode, we had 2 contestants, both named Mike. So we called one Michael, we called one Mike, and Michael was the winner. He won the third $50 Green Acres gift card. So again, all 3 winners have been notified offline so they can claim their gift card, but huge thanks to everyone for participating. Please don't forget, after listening to today's episode, to give Community Crew and Strong Fort Erie Neighbourhoods a follow online. Get your messages in on the Byrd Box, as always. Any topic, any subject, 24 hours a day. It's Fort Erie's answering machine, so call and squawk about anything you want. 289-599-BYRD or 289-599-2973. As a matter of fact, I should mention, coming up in episode 67 next week, that's going to come out next Tuesday, there's going to be another round of Fort Erie Trivia. If you want to be a contestant on Fort Erie Trivia, great reason to call the Byrd Box. Call that number, leave a message, and we'll get you set up to play trivia one of these days, okay? You can follow me online too. I'm at Buy With Brent everywhere, at BUY with Brent. Subscribe to the Fort Erie podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and try to avoid getting stung by any swarms of angry wasps out there. All right, bye.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie Podcast with your host, Brent Jones. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or visit theforteriepodcast.com.